It's our annual year-end summary review and prediction show, and unlike those other podcasts where they make a prediction and then don't tell you what happened, today I'm going to play you a clip from last year's prediction show so you can see how we did, and then it's on to the year-end review and predictions for 2020. Ted Michalos is here, and it all starts right now.
This is Debt Free in 30. Here's your host, Doug Hoyes.
Ted Michalos is here for his lucky 13th appearance on Debt Free in 30 here in 2019. It's the last show of the year. I'm not going to keep anyone in suspense. I'm going to start with a clip from show number 226 that aired on December 29th, 2018, 1 year ago. Here was our prediction for insolvencies in 2019. Well, first of all, do you think the rate of consumer insolvencies will go up? Because it's been going down for 8 straight years. Yeah. 2018 will be the first year where it's either flat or a little bit up. Is it going to go up next year?
Yeah, I don't see how it can possibly be flat. I mean, all the indications between the interest rates and other costs of living going up, consumer insolvencies are going to go up. You want to be
give me a number. What's
the real
the number?
Doom and gloom
What's
guy?
the number?
Somewhere between 8 and 10%.
8 and 10%. Oh my goodness. 8 and 10%. He says they're going to go up.
He's smiling at me
wow.
because he thinks I'm being I'm not overstating it. I think that's what it's going to happen.
Yeah, and if I had to predict, I would say, well, I don't think it's going to go up that much. But I mean, I can certainly paint the scenario where it does. I mean, even if it went up, what did you say, 8 to 9, 8 to 10?
8 to 10, yep.
So even if it went up 10%, that would only put us back to where we were in what? 2015, 2016. I mean,
we'd be nowhere near the peaks.
No, we'd be nowhere near the peak. So, I mean, we are 40% less than where we were at the peak. So even a 10% increase, and I realize you're dealing with different bases, so it doesn't make sense. But yeah, I mean, I would not predict that much.
Right. But you've always been more positive than
I know. I'm the happy-go-lucky guy here. So, but, you know, could I see a 2, 3, 4, 5% increase? Absolutely, I could. And if interest rates keep going up,
and they're going to,
then boom, it's like rolling a ball off a table. It's going, and then boom. Boom. There you go. You predicted an increase in personal insolvencies between 8 and 10%, and I said somewhere between 2 and 5%. Now, we're recording this in December, obviously.
And of 2019
Of 2019, yes. And the most recent stats that have been released are for up to and including the month of October. And so far this year, personal insolvencies in Canada are up 9.7%. I think you nailed it.
Perfect.
Beautiful. Now, of course, in Ontario so far this year, personal insolvencies are up 15.9%. I think it was pretty good the way we did that because we didn't really specify.
Nobody knew what we were talking about.
Are we talking Ontario or Canada? So we got a bit of revisionist history here. But I think in general, you pretty much nailed it. Now, I predicted 2 to 5%.
Right.
Because
you're
of course, I'm an eternal optimist, absolutely. But also because, you know, the economy was doing well, interest rates were low. Personal insolvencies in Ontario had fallen for 8 straight years from the peak in 2009 to the bottom in 2017. There was a small uptick in 2018, just over 1%. So I thought, well, 2 to 5%, that was a pretty sizable uptick. I thought I was predicting a pretty big number.
Yep.
Obviously, I underestimated, and we're going to talk about that. So before we get to our prediction for 2020, let's address the obvious question. Everything seems to be doing good. Right. Unemployment in Canada hasn't been this low since around 1975. Mm-hmm. We could talk about whether those numbers are legit or not. Interest rates are low. The real estate market is still in good shape. Wages are still going up.
Right.
So why are insolvencies going up at the fastest rate in a decade? What's going on? Now, I have seen all sorts of commentary in the media about why this is, and frankly, it's from people who are uninformed in my view. So I would like you to tell me the top 4 reasons why people are saying insolvencies are up, but that actually aren't really true.
Okay, so just so that we're clear, these aren't my reasons.
No.
This is the common wisdom.
Exactly, the conventional wisdom here.
Well, so the first excuse everybody uses, this is just a blip. It's just a temporary thing. It's not normal. It doesn't make sense because of all the other economic indicators. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that according to my cue card here, Ontario has posted double-digit growth in 8 of the last 10 months. So is that a blip? That sounds to me like a trend.
Double-digit growth in insolvencies.
Insolvencies, personal insolvencies in Ontario. So we're talking consumer proposals, personal bankruptcies. So 8 out of 10, and that's double-digit growth.
Right.
So over 10% in 8 of the last 10 months. That to me is not just a blip.
Effectively what that means is the people that are using this as an excuse really don't get it.
That's exactly right.
So let's just set that one aside.
So throw that one away.
All right. So the second is that unemployment is higher than it actually is. So the stats aren't reflecting the reality in the workplace. I mean, that means that people are underemployed or maybe they've left the workforce. But the fact that everyone's saying that unemployment is so low, the common wisdom is saying, well, maybe that's not true.
Yeah, and
that's a hard one to dispute.
We're not statisticians, so we're not out there counting. I mean, there's no doubt that there are people who are working part-time jobs, or maybe they're getting 30 hours a week.
Right.
They count as being employed, while in the past they're underemployed at best.
And we still see people that are working 2 jobs to make up the difference. And we still have all of the government agencies that hire you on contract as opposed to making you a permanent employee. Okay, so this one is harder for us to refute. I'm still not sure it's valid.
However, 8 out of 10 of our clients are working at the time they file a personal bankruptcy or consumer proposal. So it is not unemployment that is the significant cause of personal
That's
insolvency.
one of those long-term misnomers. Everybody thinks that the average bankrupt is some unemployed person sitting on the street.
It's just not the case.
Right.
It's just not the case. Okay, so we've knocked 2 of the 4 off. Give me number 3.
Right. So number 3, the interest rates continue to increase. And while that was true 12 months ago, I'm not so sure it's true anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the conventional 1-year mortgage rate bottomed out somewhere middle of 2015. I think it was actually just under 3%. Today, as we're recording this, mid to the end of December, we're over 3.5%. Again, perfect credit, conventional 1-year mortgage. But you're right. We haven't had a whole lot of mortgage interest rate movement in the last year.
Now, we're going to come back to this whole interest rate thing later when we're talking about what we think happened. But I don't think the validity of the argument that rates are continuing to go up, I don't think there is any value to it anymore. There's no evidence of that.
I totally agree. And what's the interest rate on a credit card these days?
The same as it was a year ago, same as it was 5 years ago, the same as,
Exactly. So interest rates, I think, are much less of a factor. Okay, so number 4.
Okay, so the last one is that debt levels continue to rise. So people got used to the fact that money was free when interest was really low, and they piled on the debt. And they're still piling on the debt. This is the conventional wisdom.
Yeah, and it is true that non-mortgage, so unsecured lines of credit are up about 3.1%, and I'm talking here the month of September 2019. That's the most recent stats we've got when you compare it year over year, and compared to all of 2018 when they were only up 0.3%, that's obviously up. But the debt-to-income ratio is moderating. So the Statistics Canada actually calls it the ratio of credit market debt to disposable income.
That's a very catchy phrase.
Very catchy. We should probably put that on T-shirts.
The CMDDI.
There you go. It was 175.9% in the third quarter. It peaked at 178.5% in March 2017, and it ended last year at 177.26. So it's actually down this year compared to last year. So that can't be entirely it. So just so people understand, what is the debt to income ratio? What are we talking about?
So this, when the government's talking about that, they're saying how much disposable income do you have compared to how much debt that you're carrying. So for example, if your take-home pay worked out to $30,000 a year, this means that you'd be carrying debt of $151,000.
See, I would have used $1 so I could have done it in my head. You're much better at math than I am.
I did do that in my head.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good. So, okay, so the point is what the talking heads think is irrelevant in a lot of cases. So the good economy, it's irrelevant. Joe Debtor cannot outrun his debt.
Right.
Canadians have hit their limits, so it doesn't really matter how good the economy is or isn't doing. Low unemployment, again, it's irrelevant because 8 out of 10 of our clients are working at the time they file their proposal or bankruptcy.
Right.
And interest rates, again, you already said it, credit card interest rates, 19.9%, they were the same 20 years ago.
Correct.
So we haven't seen a whole lot of movement there. So let's talk about what is relevant. And I want to start by talking about the insolvency cycle.
Okay, so you want to set some background for
everybody. I want to set some background. So we all know that there was a recession in 2008, and the peak in insolvencies happened a year later, not at exactly the same time. In the last 12 months, there have been about 5,700 more Ontarians filing personal insolvency, about 11,000 in Canada. And I don't like to quote percentages as much as I like to quote actual numbers because those are real people who have actually had to file. So I want you to tell me about time lags then. So how long does it typically take before someone realizes they're potentially in financial trouble and are actually giving you a call.
Okay. Well, so the first time lag is how long does it take them to realize that they're in financial trouble? Most people are really good at, what's the word I'm looking for?
Sort of glossing over it.
Deceiving themselves. That's what I was trying to find a nice way to say it, but there isn't. I mean, you basically trick yourself into thinking that things are not that bad. And so you've got to get to the point where you feel that they really are that bad for you to take positive steps to deal with it. So there's that first time lag, and that varies for people significantly. I mean, I see folks that they've managed to stretch this disbelief cycle out for months, even years. It's something usually triggers it that, okay, it's that final straw. I mean, there's always something true to these old cliches, right? The straw that breaks the camel's back. There's always one triggering event that pushes them over that final limit, and they realize, okay, I've had enough. I got to deal with it now. And
the triggering event could be what?
Well, I think in the last year and a half, the triggering events were the increase in mortgage interest rates. And the reason that takes a while, a time lag, is that not everybody's mortgage is renews the day after the rate goes up. So it takes 18 months, 12 months anyway to cycle through. And I put a lot of blame on the damn carbon tax from last April when gas prices went up 5 cents overnight. It's not that individually these things would disrupt anybody's finances, but cumulatively the effect is it's that last little bit of weight that breaks the camel's back.
Yeah, and my only disagreement on that would be what you said about mortgage rates, which is true, but of course our clients aren't people who own homes, but lines of credit, exact same thing. They've also gone up, and as a result, you're dealing with greater expenses.
I'm willing to predict that in the next 24 months, the percentage of our clients with homes is going to increase dramatically.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. So okay, so let's get into what's going on now, and then we can get to predictions. So we've gone through all the reasons why the conventional wisdom says insolvencies are going up, and we've kind of debunked them all. Right. So tell me then, why are bankruptcies and consumer proposals in Ontario up 16% so far this year, even though the economy is good, unemployment is low, interest rates are still moderate? What is causing the big increase?
Expenses.
Okay, we're going to need a little more...
that's a good answer.
A little more detailed here. This is like one of the most downloaded shows of the year.
It's a soundbite.
So we need... There you go. There's your soundbite. So we need a little more detail. Right. So, okay, expenses. So... Tell me what's going on there.
All right, well, so let's expand on the idea. Everybody appreciates the fact that it's very difficult for your income to increase. You don't have a lot of control over how much money you can earn and how quickly you can earn it. Well, I would argue that you also don't have much control over your expenses.
Yeah, and just on the income point there, you're absolutely right. Wages, though, are up.
They are. What, cost of living? 2%?
Well, 2.5% in the first 9 months of 2019.
Right.
But obviously what you're saying is, yeah, okay, that's good, but expenses are up even more than that.
Correct. And the expenses go up faster, and they're completely out of your control. The worst thing about the expenses going up, you've got things like housing, transportation, food. These are what economists say are inelastic demand. You've got to have these things. It's not a choice of, I can just decide not to pay my rent anymore. If it goes up,
so let's go through the numbers then.
Okay.
So the CPI, what is the CPI?
Consumer Price Index.
Okay, so basically inflation is up 2.3% in the first 10 months of 2019. It was up 1.9% for all of 2018. Again, we can have the big debate. All the Twitter people can tell me that they think CPI is not accurate. In fact, maybe we're just going to prove that. So you just talked about a bunch of expenses.
Yep.
For our average client, now again, this is not the average person in Canada. This is the average person who comes to see us who has financial difficulty, has to file.
But the only difference between our client, the average client, and the average Canadian is the amount of debt they're carrying. Everything else is similar.
Yep, they're very similar. So 31% of their net monthly household income is spent on personal and living expenses, including food. What's happening? So you talk about expenses going up. What's happening with food?
Okay, well, so food's up, what, 3.5%? In the first 10 months of last year?
Of this year.
Of this year, right. It was up 2% last year.
Yeah, so food inflation, if you want to call it that, it's not really inflation, but the cost of food is certainly going up.
And you know, one of the underlying reasons for that is as the economy improves, people can put through their price increases. They can try to recover all these costs that they buried. They go through fast. So if I'm in a company manufacturing widgets, I increase my prices, and then my employees 6 months, a year later get increased wages. And that cycle, food is even more representative of that because it's faster.
Yeah, if there's some drought in California and the price of lettuce goes up, then it happens right away. It's not a 1 year time lag. 19% is what our average client spends of their income on transportation.
Right.
Now, I don't know if that sounds intuitively correct or not, but I mean, for example, the TTC in Toronto just announced that fares are going up by 10% in 2020. And I'm oversimplifying this a little bit because it depends if you're buying the pass or whatnot. And that was after a 10% increase in 2019 as well.
Pull back that term I dropped on you, that inelastic demand. You got to get to work. So if you're on the TTC, you got to take the TTC. If you're driving a car, I mean, I keep coming back to that damn carbon tax thing because it really pisses me off. But you don't have any choice. You got to put gas in the car.
Yep. And you're right. In Toronto, you're not driving.
Right.
You're taking the TTC. Your demand is definitely inelastic. Now, the biggest component of what we tend to spend our money on, not surprisingly, is housing. So with our clients, it's about 40% of their take-home pay is spent on housing. So we're talking rent, utilities, that sort of thing. Now, 95% of our clients are renters, which of course therefore means only 5% are homeowners.
Right now.
And right now. So why is that number so low? Why is it only 5%?
Well, so for the past 6-7 years, people have been refinancing their houses because mortgage costs have been so low. I mean, when the interest rates were down sub 2%, it was like free money. You could carry a lot of debt.
And so there was really no reason
to be a renter.
Yeah.
Well, there's no reason to declare yourself insolvent if you could tap into the equity in your house.
Right.
And prices were going up at an accelerated rate because it was so inexpensive to borrow to buy the house.
So it became a cycle. So yeah, I've got $50,000 owing on my credit card. Oh, look, my house is up by $200,000. I'll just go get a line of credit for $50,000, pay them off.
Right.
So that's why we have not yet begun to see homeowners filing insolvency. Now you're predicting.
Well, I'm saying back pre-2008, 2009, our ratio at one point was 3-to-1 renters and homeowners, right?
Yep. But even by 2011, it was up in that 1/3 range.
Right. At some point, it's going to go back to that level. So right now we're at 19-to-1. That tells me that the homeowners are the people that should be the most afraid.
So you're predicting 2020, the Hoyes and Michalos Homeowners Bankruptcy Index will be more than 5%.
It's going to increase dramatically.
Makes sense. Okay, now. Here's some interesting numbers. According to rentals.ca, I want to give credit where we're getting our numbers from here, the average rent in Canada for October 2019 was about $1,940 a month. And of course, that's an average, high, low, the whole bit. That's up 5.5% from last year. The median rental rate was $1,850, which is up 8.9%. And can you just explain the difference between average and median in simple terms here?
So, median is the most common middle rent.
It's the middle.
Rent. It's the middle, right?
Yeah.
And the average is all the ones on the outliers, the small ones and the high ones. They kind of smooth it out.
And so median tends to be a little bit more representative.
It's easier for people to understand, even though they don't know what the word means.
Gotcha. So it's the middle. Okay, up 8.9%. In Ontario, which happens to be where we are today.
Right.
In the month of October, the average rent was $2,334 a month, and that is up 9.1% from a year earlier, October 2018.
You remember what you said wages were up last year?
2.5%.
Now our rent's gone up basically 4 times that much.
Which is pretty much your point, right? That expenses are going up. And that kind of says it right there. And again, with rent, it's not, you made this point, it's not an immediate thing. I'm living in a place, the landlord can only up my rent, under rent control, 2% or whatever the number is.
And once a year.
And they can only do it once a year. So how is it possible that average rental rates in Ontario are up 9.1%? Well, people move.
Right.
And when you move, the landlord can reset the rent to whatever the market rates are.
Right.
And of course, we've done a couple of podcasts already on the whole rent eviction thing where the landlord says, oh yeah, I'm moving my mother in, so you have to move out. My mother lives there for 2 days and then, oh, guess what? Now I'm going to rent it out again. So if you've been in the same place for a long time, you're perhaps not seeing this, but if you had to move, it's a big number. So
well, and what we just talked about, so the living expenses, the transportation, the housing costs, that's 90% of everybody's budget. And we just said that the biggest element of that went up almost 10%, but your wages only went up 2.5%. I mean, it's not rocket
there's
science.
The math.
Yep.
There's the math. And that's, I think, the missing element to it. So, okay, now back to the point here. Even though the debt-to-income ratio has dropped slightly, our debt levels are still wickedly high. Yep. So even if your debt payments stay the same, and of course they aren't, if your food and transportation, housing costs, I mean, you just said that's a massive percentage of your budget,
Right.
you're going to have less cash flow available each month to service your debt. And I want to emphasize again, it's not mortgage payments that are the problem for our clients.
Right.
It's expenses and unsecured debt.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the problem comes in. Because mortgages are what, 2.5 times bigger than consumer credit.
Okay.
So, which I guess kind of makes sense, right? Your
Right.
typical mortgage is going to be a few $100,000.
And then you got an underlying asset. So
There
it's
is
not-
an asset. That's
you're
exactly
not
right.
comparing the same
Yeah,
things here.
absolutely right. But what we're dealing with in a consumer proposal or bankruptcy is unsecured debt.
Right.
So, prediction time.
Okay.
So, we know what's happening now. You nailed the prediction last year. You know, you predicted personal insolvencies would be up 10%, and so far you're pretty much nailing that. What are you predicting for 2020? And I don't just want the numbers. I want you to show your work. Tell us
Right.
why you think it's going to happen.
So I, again, think it's going to be somewhere between that 8 and 10%. And primarily for the same reasons, that expenses are outstripping people's income. The folks that were most at risk have probably already addressed it. I think the people that need to be most concerned in 2020 are, again, the homeowners that are remortgaging, that are refinancing, the renters that have to relocate or move, because all of those costs are going to get passed on to them. And so that's where these numbers are going to come from.
So Ted's prediction, 8 to 10% increase in personal insolvencies in Ontario in 2020.
Right.
And even though I'm the eternal optimist here, I'm going to go totally the other way.
Not this year.
No, I'm going to say 20%.
Right.
And of course, I was wrong last year, so you're probably the one people should be betting on here if there's a
way to monetize this.
Exactly, yes. And the reason I think that is, I mean, a lot of the reasons you've just said, but when you look at the rate of increase over the last few months, we're actually on a 3-month moving average running around that 20% or higher rate.
Yep.
I don't see anything changing for the better for the average indebted Ontarian in the new year. Of course, neither do you. That's why you're predicting an 8 to 10% increase. Yep. But debt levels continue to go up, and I'm not even predicting any kind of extraneous shock. If the real estate market goes in the tank, and I'm not predicting that, but if it does, and you've got a bunch of homeowners who bought their home in 2017 at the peak and now have to move, they can't refinance, you get a string of sales, that could certainly cause a shock. Unemployment, again, has been fairly moderate. What if it ticks up? And we are so intertwined with the world economy.
Right.
I don't know what's going to happen in the world. I mean, I guess, Brexit's going to happen. I guess Trump's going to get reelected next year. What does that all mean? I don't know.
Are we going to end up with another election here next fall?
Who knows?
Right.
Who knows? And we're not predicting any of that stuff. But when I look at all the numbers, I go, I can't see the rate of growth we're on taking a big drop. But I guess we'll find out.
We will.
We will. And we'll play the clip again next year and see how it goes. See how we did. Ted, thanks very much for being here. Thanks for your appearances in 2019. We will have you back many times.
13,
in
huh?
13.
Oh, there we go. Something to shoot for.
13. Well, and in prior years you were on even more than that, but we're pretty busy. We've been pretty busy this year. You're covering a couple of different offices. You're seeing clients 5 days a week, so harder to get you in the studio, but we'll shoehorn you in whenever we can.
All right.
Thanks very much. One final point before I close the show and the year. The median household income for Joe Debtor, my typical client, has been rising at a rate of 5% per year. But I said that wages are up 2.5% in the first 9 months of 2019. So how is that possible? It's not because my clients are earning 5% more. It is because people with a marginally higher income than in prior years are now filing either a consumer proposal or bankruptcy. As living costs and higher debt repayment demands continue to rise faster than wage growth, this trend will continue, and that's why Ted and I are predicting much higher personal insolvency rates in Ontario in 2020. And let me also say that I'm not happy about it. More moderate growth would be better for my business and for the economy in general. But the point of today's show is to tell you what we think will happen, not what we want to happen. Knowing what may happen is important because you can take action to protect yourself. Now is the time to reduce debt because it won't get any easier in 2020. That's our last show for the year and the decade. I want to thank all of our regular listeners. Please subscribe to the Debt Free in 30 channel on YouTube and on your favorite podcasting app, and I appreciate it if you can leave a comment and a review. That's our show for today. Until next year, I'm Doug Hoyes. That was Debt Free in 30.